Very good day, guys. Welcome again in this video session. So we have completed our anterior and the middle cranial fossa till now. Now this is the last part of the cranial fossa, that is the posterior cranial fossa. So I think you are doing very well. You are studying well. You are grasping everything. So without wasting our time, I will and we will learn together about the posterior cranial fossa. Okay, so what is this? So this is the largest and the deepest of the three cranial fossae. The posterior cranial fossa contains the hindbrain, which consists of the cerebellum behind and pons and medulla oblongata in front. So we'll see first what is the boundaries of this posterior cranial fossa. So anteriorly, they are the superior border of the petrous temporal bone and the dorsum sellae of the sphenoid bone. So just remember it. The posterior border of the middle cranial fossa is forming the anterior boundary of the posterior cranial fossa. Likewise, the posterior boundary of the anterior cranial fossa is also the anterior boundary of middle cranial fossa. Okay, fine. Then posterior boundary of the posterior cranial fossa is squamous part of the occipital bone, right? And on each side, the mastoid part of the temporal bone and the mastoid angle of the parietal bone. Because so you can see this is the mastoid part of the temporal bone and mastoid angle of the parietal bone. Now floor, how the floor is formed? So in the median area, the sloping area behind the dorsum sellae, that is known as the clivus in front, foramen magnum in middle, and the squamous occipital bone behind, the squamous part of the occipital bone. Okay guys, and the lateral area of the floor formed by the condylar or lateral part of the occipital bone, the posterior surface of the petrous temporal bone and mastoid temporal bone, and the mastoid angle of the parietal bone. Fine. Now what are the other features present here? So first you will see in the median area. So this is the clivus, which is sloping surface in front of the foramen magnum, and it is formed by the fusion of the posterior part of the body of the sphenoid, including the dorsum sellae, with the basilar part of the occipital bone, that is known as the basiocciput. Okay, so this clivus is related to the basilar plexus of the veins and supports the pons and the medulla oblongata on it. Fine. And on its side, the clivus is separated from the petrous temporal bone by a fissure known as petro-occipital fissure, which is grooved by the inferior petrosal sinus, one of the important dural venous sinuses, that is inferior petrosal sinus. And this fissure is continuous behind here with the jugular foramen. So you can see this is the jugular foramen. Okay guys. Okay. Then we'll come to the foramen magnum. So foramen magnum lies in the floor of the fossa, and it is bounded anteriorly by the basiocciput, posteriorly by the squamous part of the occipital bone, and on each side by the condylar or lateral part of the occipital bone, means whole and soul by the occipital bone, the parts of the occipital bone. The anterior part of the foramen is narrower because it is overlapped by the medial surface of the occipital condyle. We already seen in the norma basalis also. Okay, and then the squamous part of the occipital bone shows here these features. These features are the internal occipital crest, which is running in median plane from the internal occipital protuberance to the posterior margin of the foramen magnum, and here it is forming a shallow depression that is known as the Vermian fossa, right? Then the internal occipital protuberance is here, which lies opposite to the external occipital protuberance, and it is related to the confluence of the dural venous sinuses, and it is grooved on each side by the beginning of the transverse sinuses. Then, so this are the transverse sulcus, and this transverse sulcus is quite wide, fine, and runs laterally from the internal occipital protuberance to the mastoid angle of the parietal bone, where it becomes continuous with the sigmoid sulcus. So transverse sulcus is accommodating the transverse sinus, and here the right transverse sulcus is usually wider than the left one and is continuous medially with the superior sagittal sulcus. Okay, and on each side of the internal occipital crest there are the deep fossae which are accommodating the cerebellar hemisphere. Okay guys, so this was all about the median area of the posterior cranial fossa. Now we'll learn about the lateral area. So in the lateral area, the condylar part of the occipital bone, it is marked by a jugular tubercle which lies over the occipital condyle, then hypoglossal canal which is piercing the bone posterior inferior to the jugular tubercle and runs obliquely forward and laterally along the line of the fusion between the basilar and condylar parts of the occipital bone. Are you getting? Then there is the condylar canal which is opening in the lower part of the sigmoid sulcus, which indents the jugular process of the occipital bone. Then the posterior surface of the petrous part of the temporal bone you can see here. So it forms the anterolateral wall of the posterior cranial fossa. The structure present here are the internal acoustic meatus, which opens about the anterior part of the jugular foramen. It is about 1 centimeter long and runs transversely in a lateral direction, and it is closed laterally by the perforated plate of bony lamina that is known as the lamina fibrosa, which is perforated, therefore fibrosa, and it separates it from the internal ear. This lamina fibrosa separate internal acoustic meatus from the internal ear. Then there is the orifice of the aqueduct of vestibule, you can see here, and it is the narrow slit which is lying behind the internal acoustic meatus, and there is subarcuate fossa which lies below the arcuate eminence. You have seen arcuate eminence in middle cranial fossa which are formed by the semicircular canal. Okay, so below that there is a subarcuate fossa, fine, and it is lateral to the internal acoustic meatus. Then we will see the jugular foramen is here, which is lying posterior end of the petrooccipital fissure between the deep jugular notch of the petrous temporal bone above and shallow jugular notch of the occipital bone below. The upper margin of the sharp and irregular, okay, you can see here the upper margin, and present the glossopharyngeal notch, and the lower margin is smooth and irregular, and smooth. Then comes the mastoid part of the temporal bone, and it is forming the lateral wall of the posterior cranial fossa just behind the petrous part of the temporal bone. Anteriorly it is marked by the sigmoid sulcus, which begins at downward continuation of the transverse sulcus at the mastoid angle of the parietal bone and ends at the jugular foramen. Fine. So this sigmoid sulcus lodges the sigmoid sinus, which later becomes downward, it becomes internal jugular vein at the jugular foramen. It is continuing at the internal jugular vein, and this sulcus is related anteriorly to the tympanic antrum. Okay, so also the mastoid foramen which you have seen in the norma occipitalis, the mastoid foramen is opening into the upper part of this sigmoid sulcus. If I can show you, this is mastoid foramen opening in the sigmoid sulcus. Okay. Now we have completed about this middle posterior cranial fossa. Now regarding the applied anatomy, so fracture of the posterior cranial fossa, it causes the bruising over the mastoid region, extending down over the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So this is about the completion of the posterior cranial fossa and also about our whole of the cranial fossa. All the anterior, middle and posterior cranial fossa we have completed. So I hope guys you have get well understood about all this topic of the cranial cavity. So hope you will do better in exam, but there is no option for revision. So you have to revise it regularly, okay, till it becomes stuck in your mind. Okay guys, so you are done very well. So thank you very much to be remain with me and for your patience. Okay, so tata, bye bye, thank you.